r/askreddit. Serious, Christians turned atheists, what made you lose your faith? Going to Catholic school did it for me. They were teaching us things that contradicted what they had taught the year before, and you couldn't really ask questions. If you did, the theology teacher would yell about that's what faith is for, don't question the Bible. What really made me disgusted was that the teachers were adamant that suicide sends your soul straight to hell because you took the life of one of God's creatures. A schoolmate had a father who took his life, and the way they handled it was horrible and basically made mental health issues a nothing burger. 3 years after the above incident, my brother took his own life, and these arsehole teachers had the audacity to show up to the visitation to pay their respects. I had to walk away so I wasn't rude. My friend is married to a devout Catholic and he's against meds too. She suffers really badly from anxiety, and her needing medication is a source of trouble between them. She considers taking them behind his back but is afraid that would create even more strife if he found out. And I keep asking her, so if you become diabetic you can't take insulin? BC, to me mental health is the same concept. Your body can't regulate hormones. You need outside help. And, honestly, I don't think a loving God would condemn a person for trying to prevent suicide or murder just BC a church told you drugs are bad. Eater, been getting a lot of responses from Catholics saying this isn't a teaching of their church. So I'm now fully aware it's just her husband's viewpoint or something his particular church teaches. This quote from Jefferson. Question with boldness even the existence of a God, because if there be one he must approve of the homage of reason more than that of blindfolded fear. Edit. First gold. Thank you. Glad that I received it for posting a philosophical quote and not a dick joke. Edit 2. Didn't expect this to blow up, but lots of people posting their own quotes or trying to argue that God is real. Believe what you want, but you're not gonna sway me. What I find most beautiful about this quote is that it doesn't say God doesn't exist nor that he's not real. It just gives another interpretation that I was never privy to growing up. Why shouldn't I question God's existence? And if I question enough and come to terms that he doesn't exist, then the God I used to believe in should still love me the same. I do not feel obliged to believe that the same God who has endowed us with senses, reason, and intellect has intended us to forego their use. Galileo Galilei. Damn it, why are our leaders such shit today? The church did it for me. When I started to understand that it was a business. For profit and for power and for influence. When it started to become political. The final straw was when I started to see how much hypocrisy there is, by way of prejudice and hate. Look at the Inquisition. When people started to waver in their faith and began practicing other religions, the Catholic Church basically created a paramilitary wing to punish people into believing. Or else. Executions were common, and they'd murder heretics for not believing in the right religion. It was all about money and power, and the moment that got challenged they crusaded against it. I was in a hard time for me and I started praying, attending Catholic activities and doing lots of other things like these. I wasn't feeling better. Years after I gave up doing these things and started taking care of me by myself, and now I'm happy. So the faith gradually went away. I'm not fully an atheist though. I may be an agnostic but I'm not sure. Similar-ish here. I was raised in the church, told to pray and all that. When I was little, I would pray, but nothing came of it, so I stopped. Nothing changed. When I was a bit older, my parents and I stopped going to church because we got a priest they didn't like. The church population as a whole dropped cuss of this guy. But those were the best times since I now had weekends all to myself, no sitting in a stuffy building, etc. So I was happier that I wasn't having to do things I didn't enjoy, but besides that, nothing changed. Once we started going back, it was harder for me to sit there because I had tasted freedom. I started looking at it more objectively and just came to the conclusion none of it makes sense. This is doing nothing good for me mentally, and I feel like I am wasting time. So now that I've moved out and have not been to church in a long while, I feel fine. There has been no consequences to not going to church, only benefits. I'm a good person. I help where I can, etc. I don't need religion for that. But if that sends me to hell, I'm convinced then hell is the more fun place to be anyway. So whatever. For the most part, I believe that there is some higher power. Why? IDK because I want to believe in some kind of magic or something. Where did this higher power come from though? A further higher power? So what about him? Etc. The meaning of life is too much to think about, so I just tend to ignore it and enjoy my life in the here and now. When a deacon told me that disability was an abomination of God and the disabled were a burden to us all and a mistake. Edit, I wish no ill will towards this man and especially not violence. It's sad so many have heard this exact thing. Acceptance and love matter for all, not just those who fit our ideals, whatever they may be. Also, the entire congregation was in support of his views. Not the only church I've heard this kind of speak before. Hitler is calling. He wants his political views back. Taking a mythology class in college and realizing all the different religions had similar origin stories of how Earth and man were created and evolved, but the details differed based on the environment the people lived in and how far along they were technologically. Anything science couldn't explain was the will of a higher power. Not saying higher powers couldn't exist, just realized people are killing each other because theirs is the right God, but the people don't realize that for all intents and purposes, they are all following the similar lesson stories. I also believe religion is separate from its organization structure. I think being spiritual and believing in a higher power is okay. It has helped mankind cope with the terrifying unknown. Anybody telling you that God wants you to donate money to them so that their leader can live in a super mansion or own an airplane is a fucking liar. Last I checked, none of that money ever gets trickled up to a deity. I started to read the Bible. Then it was gradual. First I did not believe that the God in the Bible was good and created my own personal God. Then I realized that I was making up a God and started to question if everyone else was doing the same. That's when I started questioning, but felt guilty about it and had conversations with God like, you cannot be angry that I am questioning. If you wanted me to believe, you shouldn't have left all of this gaps and contradictions. Eventually I became an atheist. Edit. Typo. We actually had to read the Bible for our book report in high school. My teacher was, and still is, a hardcore Catholic, and she always finds a way to make fun of other religions. She often makes fun of atheists because she cannot understand how someone can live without faith in God. One day she tried to convince my classmates, when I wasn't in school, that God is real because there's a bug that can fart. I'm not joking. She actually said that. Short answer, grew up Southern Baptist. When I started getting to the age where I could think critically about things, I just started noticing some inconsistencies. Specifically, I was told that people who believed in other religions would go to hell because they followed the wrong religion. What? When religion is based a lot on where you are born, I just could not truly believe that people would be sent to hell for being born in the wrong country. Ricky Gervais made a great point about church and religion, who BTW is an avid atheist. Loosely quoted to saying, isn't funny how you are always born into the right religion. I was raised Roman Catholic. Around 12 I started to read the Bible. That did it for me. I'm fully convinced that reading the Bible with an open mind is the most effective way to become an atheist. It's batshit crazy. You're not alone in that belief. Most atheists in predominantly Christian countries are firmly of the opinion that actually reading the Bible, and doing so with the intent of looking at what it actually says, is the leading cause of atheism. Many of them that used to be Christian will tell you that they lost their faith the same way you did. This is going to be a wall of text, but a short answer wouldn't do. It's also a long weekend and I have had a drink or two. On mobile, so formatting may be weird. I used to be very religious. Although we didn't attend church every Sunday, we did go to youth a lot as kids, which was just a once a week thing in the evening. God came into every part of my life. I didn't meet an atheist until I was about to turn 13. We moved to a big city, away from our small rural town, and one of my new friends in my grade said he was an atheist once. My immediate thought, and subsequent question was, aren't you afraid you'll go to hell? Though the idea was terrifying. He replied, I don't believe in it, so no. It blew my mind. Then later that year I realized that I'm probably gay. Because of my fear of God and knowing that men must be with women, I told myself I could like men and women, That way I can admit that I'm feeling for boys what my friends felt for girls, and I still would never ever have to kiss a boy because that would be bad. I figured that God must have made me this way for a reason. It was only when I explained to one of my closer friends that day I was informed this is called being bi. My poor mind was not having a great time. Soon after, my friends all but told, that went absolutely terribly, a story I won't go into. But I never blamed God or anything like that. To me, I just understood that he made it so that I would have to feel these things I can't act on, which made me someone people wouldn't like, and I had to learn from it. Soon enough, through a friend I met online, I discovered another gay like me, who had never met another gay like me. He was close to my age and we became good friends and would see each other on the weekends. I still held on to my beliefs, but just like any straight guy at this age, 14ish by now, exploration and young love had us kissing after a month of seeing each other, and I had never even kissed a girl. That made me feel very guilty. My first kiss, and it was with a boy. I could feel God's disappointment. I would often stay awake at night over it. I wanted to be good, but I couldn't. When we broke up after 7 months, I decided okay, I had my fling. Time to get back on the right track, apologize to God and make him proud. I got myself a girlfriend at last. Finally, I was in a normal relationship, so I did my best and made an awkward fool of myself. She was a fun person and we were good friends, but I wasn't gonna cuddle her or anything. It just felt so weird, like it wasn't comfortable. It didn't come naturally to me and I just didn't feel the need to. Incidentally, at this time I was having troubles with my faith. We went to church a bit more often now. There were good priests and such on YouTube to watch, but they didn't really answer a lot of the questions I had. For example, how important are the rules in the Bible actually? Sure, Leviticus talks about homosexuality, but also eating shrimp or wearing mixed fires. Stuff no one cares about. Why don't we care about those things? Lots of stuff in the New Testament too, and old, from prophets to Jesus, and with no obvious distinction between the stuff we take as law and the stuff we didn't. I got that different churches practiced different things. I knew you could be gay and Christian, but for me it wasn't about being a part of a church, it was about what God wanted specifically. At this point I didn't trust any one church or preacher to be true. And so I read the Bible. It confused me a lot. There was a lot to take in, a lot of it seemed random to me, but I got that these were important and that I would understand someday, and most of it I didn't really absorb. But I didn't see the God I knew in there. That was difficult, but these were the days of miracles and floods. I guess I realized these were all allegories and symbols. I came out of it feeling further from an answer, but closer to God. So it's not like I did thorough analysis with cross-referencing or anything. But hey, it was good enough for me, and I decided I can be gay and Christian, as long as I am a good, kindly person. But these were modern times and I lived in a modern city, as I got more friends outside of my Christian school in a Christian neighborhood, specifically gay friends. My beliefs were questions. No one ever actually asked me to defend them or tried to poke holes in it, but their conversations and personal philosophies were intriguing, and their lack of a need for God was clear. It was only after that I started looking at the possibility of God not being real, but I didn't want God to be angry at me for looking at it. So I made a heartfelt promise to God that I would not lose faith in him. I would simply investigate it, and I hoped with his guidance, I could find my true path to him. And at the end, that was what actually made me atheist. The communities online, the books I read, the way it just made sense. I held on to hope of some or other creator. I still wanted to believe I had been feeling a God's presence in all my life. He felt real. I felt his pride in me. I felt his disappointment. I felt his love. Where do those feelings fit into all of this? But of course other religions feel that too. My best friend was Hindu and he had that same faith and reverence. Our other friends were Muslim, and they were especially devoted to Allah. They all felt how I did, and we can't all be right, so I don't believe in Islam, I don't in Hinduism, and I realized that I don't believe in Christianity, and that I hadn't for a long time. I had just believed in this God I had made up in my own head. And so I stopped. It was hard, and it took years to really accept that I was an atheist. But I'm so thankful I did. I still respect religious people completely. I live among Thai Buddhists now and I appreciate so much about what religion can bring to people. I don't think I know better than those who believe, it's just something I have come to accept for myself. Was heavily indoctrinated with young earth creationism as a child. Stopped believing in the literal truth of the Bible in college when confronted with extensive evidence to the contrary. Was still very religious, with faith in the moral truth of the Bible. Got engaged to a conservative Christian in medical school. It ended badly. Realized after the fact that Christianity did nothing to prevent the emotional abuse I had suffered by the hands of my mother growing up and my ex as an adult. In fact, faith actively facilitated it in many ways. Hence, not a reliable source of moral truth, too subject to personal interpretation. Put faith on hold. A year later, realized I was happy and not going to church. About another year later, just recently, discovered my beliefs align much more cleanly with secular humanism. Edit. Thanks for all the replies and support everyone. Looks like I struck a chord. Didn't realize it until a month later because residency. Haha. I stopped believing because of Santa Claus. As a kid, I wanted magic to be real. I needed it to be, and everyone told me it was. Just have faith and believe in magic, and it will be real. That's apparently all it took. Finding out Santa wasn't real was a major bummer to my child self, and it literally made me question everything else I'd been told. Especially because when it came to talk of God, as everyone told me the exact same thing. Have faith. Believe. Just let him into your heart. Yeah, you guys fed me the same lines about Santa and look how that turned out. 8-year-old me just discovered skepticism. I ended up going to a Christian homeschool in my teens. I lived in Germany, and it was the only way for me to get an American education. I never stopped that discerning, questioning attitude. Eventually I just started to roll my eyes at a lot of the claims in the teachings, and the excuses of why things were the way they were just felt like people trying to fill in the blanks. For example, nobody could provide proof God existed, and they'd just point to the Bible as proof. Just look at it. It's all the proof you need. I'd counter the Bible was written by man, and they could say anything they wanted. Oh, but God guided them to write it. So, let me get this straight. God's all powerful, yet can't write his own book? Why does he need regular people to do it for him? Couldn't he just will it into existence like he did the 10 Commandments? And second, if God were all powerful, wouldn't the Bible be written in a language every human could understand and didn't need to be open to interpretation? Over the years my spirituality grew less and less, all because I asked basic questions and nobody could ever give me an answer that didn't ultimately end up coming back to Santa Claus. You just have to have faith.